everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I am finally bringing you guys an updated thriller recommendations video. I did one around this time last year and I meant to get this video out at some point in October because these are the perfect kinds of books to read during spooky season, especially if you're someone that can't quite stomach horror novels. Thrillers are the way to go. But it just didn't happen, so I am finally filming this video. So like I said, I have done this video once or twice before. I will definitely link those past videos up in the cards above in case you were interested in even more thriller recommendations. But without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. The first one I'm going to recommend is Night Swim by Megan Golden. So this is about our main character, Rachel. She has a very, very popular true crime podcast. So that's one of the things that I really appreciated about this novel, is that the audiobook especially, you really feel like you are listening to a true crime podcast during those parts of the novel. And so at this point, Rachel travels to this really small town where a rape trial is happening. And this woman finds Rachel and asks her to investigate, I believe, the murder of her sister that happened like years and years ago. And so basically these two cases end up being connected in a really interesting way. With these thriller recommendations, I'm going to keep the synopses pretty short because I'm someone that likes to go into thrillers pretty blind, so I don't want to reveal too much. But what I will say is definitely look up the content warnings for yourself if you have any triggers, because thrillers get very, very dark at times. So yes, definitely look up those content warnings. Next up, we have You Are Not Alone. This is written by an author duo. Let's see, Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, I believe, are the authors' names. This is their most recent release, and I think it's also their best book to date. I have read their two past publications, but this one, in my opinion, is the best so far from them. So this is interesting. We have a main character who sees this really horrific event happen while she's waiting for the subway, and she somehow gets kind of initiated into this revenge cult situation, and I'm really gonna leave it at that. I really liked all the different characters that we're following in this book. It was just a very interesting kind of plot and situation that our main character finds themselves in. And yeah, this book definitely made me excited to see more future books from this author duo, because like I said, it's definitely the best book that they've released so far, at least in my opinion, whereas their first two books I definitely kind of had some issues with. So yes, definitely recommend going with this one. Next up, we have The Arrangement. I'm going to be very upfront with you all and tell you that this is kind of like a trashy Lifetime movie in book form. It is not high art by any means, but it gave me exactly what I wanted. And so the plot is, we have our main character. She's living in New York City. I believe she is going to college there, and she is just very poor. She's not making nearly enough money, and so she makes a friend at school who tells her about being a sugar baby. And so she joins the sugar baby website, pretty much immediately meets this man. I believe his name is Gabriel. For some reason I can remember the guy's name and not the main character. So she starts seeing this guy Gabriel as a sugar baby, but they realize that they really like each other, and so he proposes this arrangement that she'll basically be his kept woman. He'll put her up in this really nice apartment and she'll be available to him pretty much 24/7 basically. And so this turns into one of those plots where the guy starts like distancing himself from our main character, and so she kind of becomes a stalker, but then things kind of get flipped around and crazy shit happens. It also becomes like a murder mystery at some point. So yeah, this gave me all that I wanted from a sugar baby thriller. Next up, we have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This is the second book that I've read by this author and this author's most recent release. I also read his and hers, but this book is definitely better in my opinion, so that's why I'm recommending this one in particular. But this one is about a married couple, and their marriage is not going well at all. So as a last-ditch effort to save their marriage, they decide to take this weekend trip to Scotland, where there is this abandoned chapel turned bed and breakfast. And this chapel is like right outside of a village, but it's a very remote area for the most part. And it kind of seems like the husband and wife may be planning to kill each other during the weekend at some point, but let's just say there's a third character that shows up that causes a lot of chaos. And I thought this was absolutely fantastic. The pacing is awesome. There was a plot twist that I personally didn't see coming. This is just a really, really well written thriller in my opinion. I just couldn't stop reading because I was just so intrigued about how the plot was unfolding and the background of these two main characters and how and why they got married and everything like that. Also, one of our main characters, the male main character, he has facial blindness, which is something that I hadn't really heard about before, but essentially he can't tell the difference between people by just looking at their face. It's described that he really only sees like kind of a blur as people's faces, so I thought that that was really intriguing to include in a thriller. Next up is a thriller that I know you guys have heard me rave and rave about recently. This is The Passengers by John Mars. Definitely one of the top thrillers I have ever read. So just to tell you a little bit of what's going on though, we have about like 6 or 7 pretty major characters. In the UK, this does take place in 2019, but in a more like futuristic society basically, because driverless cars have taken over the roadways and it is set to be that way all over the world in the next few months or years. So our 6 or 7 major characters, they each get into a different driverless car. They each have very different destinations to go to. But then this voice comes over the speakers of all of these cars, and this hacker tells them that they have reset their destination to one fixed point, and in 2.5 hours they will all get to that set destination and they will be dead by then. John Mars is the king of writing a crazy plot twist literally at the end of every chapter, and because of that you can't help but just be on the edge of your seat. Next up we have quite a different kind of thriller. I guess I would call this like a crime / revenge thriller. This is Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Ugh, this is absolutely fantastic. This book and The Passengers are like my 2 top recommendations in this video for sure. But we're following 2 main characters. We have Ike, who is a black man. We have Buddy Lee, who is a white man. He's definitely described as being kind of a redneck type of guy. They live somewhere in like the deep south, I believe. I can't remember exactly where, but essentially both of their sons are gay and they married each other, and Ike and Buddy Lee never fully accepted their sons. Then their sons get murdered by a seemingly random shootout situation or drive-by shooting situation. And so now Ike and Buddy Lee are hell-bent on revenge, finding out who killed their sons and why. And the star of this story is not only the thrilling aspects, of course, because this definitely will keep you on the edge of your seat. There's so many scenes where shit just goes to hell so fast and you can't help but keep reading, but also the developing friendship between Ike and Buddy is just beautiful and amazing, and how this book explores different kinds of prejudice and the way it explores a very unique kind of grief. I mean, imagine if you had a child and you never accepted them and then that child was murdered. I mean, I could only imagine the kind of pain that you would be feeling. So I can't recommend this highly enough. I also really want to check out S.A. Cosby's other book. I believe that was called Blacktop Wasteland, and I think it's a similar kind of like crime thriller. Next up we have They Never Learn. This is another revenge thriller, one of my favorite kinds of thrillers. We have a main character, we have 2 main characters actually. We have one who is starting her freshman year at this university, and then the other main character is a professor at this same university. Now the professor, she is a serial killer, and specifically she kills men that have done really horrible things. What can I say? These kinds of revenge thrillers are like crack to me. I feel like I really don't want to say anything more about it. Just pick it up if it sounds at all interesting to you. So next I have a stack of books that I physically own that I want to recommend. The first one is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Is it a stretch to call this a thriller? You could argue, yes, absolutely. It's probably more of a gothic fiction slash mystery, but in my opinion, there's definitely thrilling aspects to this story. Things get really creepy, and yeah, so I'm gonna put it in this video. This is a book that I did not expect to love as much as I did. I have a really hard time with classics. Now, this was written, I want to say like 1939, 1940, so this book definitely isn't as old as some other classics. But with classics, I always just assume that they're going to be really hard to read and that they're going to be really dense. And this one really isn't. I could not stop reading this. Like, something about the writing style was just like delectable and addictive, and it makes me want to read more from Daphne du Maurier. I know that she's got definitely a healthy list of titles that she wrote in her lifetime, but this is definitely her most famous book. So we have a nameless main character, but pretty much at the very beginning of the book, she meets this guy, Maxim de Winter, and gets married to him. So from then on, she's just known as Mrs. de Winter, which I feel like is a very interesting choice. I know I've never read a book like that before. So she moves in to his very opulent but also kind of creepy mansion. And so basically everybody who works at the mansion, people that live around the mansion, like nobody will shut up about this woman, Rebecca, who was the woman that Maxim married before marrying our main character. But Rebecca passed away under very, very mysterious circumstances. And yeah, this is just a really great book. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. It wasn't like a perfect read for me, but I thought it was really great. Definitely makes me want to check out more from this author. And I would definitely recommend it if you're someone like me that doesn't think that they like classics. Next up, I'm gonna recommend a couple of books by one of my favorite YA thriller authors, and that is Tiffany D. Jackson. So the first one is Allegedly. This one is about our main character, Maddie B. Addison, who allegedly killed a baby when she herself was very young. I wanna say she was like 9 years old. So she essentially gets sent to baby jail for 6 years and then gets put into a group home for troubled young women. And this was the first book that I had ever read from Tiffany D. Jackson. I didn't really know what to expect from her writing or from the kinds of stories that she tells, but I was captivated the whole time. I adore her writing style. I do recall that the ending of this is quite polarizing. A lot of people hate it. I don't think that I hated it, but I didn't love it either. Like, it'll definitely make you think a lot. And the other thriller that I want to recommend by Tiffany D. Jackson is Monday's Not Coming. So we have two main characters, Monday and Claudia. So they have been best friends for a while. I can't remember exactly how long, but they are very close. And they don't really see each other over the summer for different reasons, but they are like best friends at school especially. And so Claudia notices that the first day back after summer vacation, Monday does not show up to school. And she doesn't show up to school for quite a few days. And so she starts asking around teachers at the school, administration. She goes to Monday's family to see if she can get some answers, and nobody seems to care that Monday has gone missing. And this was even better than Allegedly. This is an absolutely fantastic story. Will keep you on the edge of your seat for sure. I will say this story can be a bit confusing just because there's a lot of time jumps. So definitely just give yourself time to kind of get used to the writing style of this one. And last but certainly not least, I can't do a thriller recommendations video without talking about The Good Girl's Guide to Murder Trilogy by Holly Jackson. Oh my goodness. Let's just hold up the first book. So this is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is about our main character, Pip. And in this first book, she's working on her senior project, her final project, however you want to refer to it. And she decides to investigate this murder case that happened in her hometown about 6 years ago. So this murder case was solved 6 years ago, but she doesn't believe that the story the police came up with is actually what happened, because allegedly what happened is that Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend Sal Singh, and then Sal Singh committed suicide. But there's definitely some sketchy and iffy things going on with that version of the story. And so she ends up interviewing a ton of different people in regards to the murder, and the audiobook is definitely the way to go with this series because you do get a full cast of voice actors, narrators, And so you really believe that you are living this story and you are investigating this murder with Pip. And then the two other books in this series, let's see, book 2 is Good Girl, Bad Blood. In this book, Pip starts her own true crime podcast, and a brother of one of her friends ends up going missing, and so that's what this second book covers. And then the third book, As Good as Dead, I can't talk about the plot at all because it will spoil a lot of what happens in the first 2 books. But this is an absolutely phenomenally done series. I can't wait to see what Holly Jackson comes out next. It's just really great. I couldn't help but give all 3 of the books in this series 5 stars. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for this thriller recommendations video. Definitely let me know in the comments below what your favorite thriller is, or the favorite thriller that you've read recently. I always love hearing from you guys in the comments. And with all that being said, I would love it if you would leave a like and subscribe. And I thank you so much in advance if you do. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!